Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, happy Thursday. I am Marty Caswell. That is Kyle Glaser, and you are watching Friar Territory. Guys, we are just days away from the winter meetings, but before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and start today's show the way I ended on Monday. I'm going to check my email inbox and see if there's any emails from the Padres on an extension for AJ Preller. Is there a press conference? Nope, we're good.
Nothing.
Kyle Glaser, we are free to go ahead and get on with our day and get on with our show. How are you today?
Doing all right, Marty. This is always an exciting time. The winter meetings, it's just so much fun. I was fortunate enough to go to, I think, 8 of them, and it's just a
Mm.
great time. All the writers, all the executives, all the scouts, a lot of the agents, all in one place together. You have rumors flying. It's exciting. I will say, no one actually gets a full 8 hours of sleep. It's very much like anywhere from 1 to 4. So by the end of it, you come home. A lot of people are sick and need to go to sleep for a week. But while you're there, it is a blast.
I love it. I'm so mad that I'm not there. This is also what we call Scott Boras. It's like Scott Boras holiday. I'm sure that right now he is perfecting his presentation for his free agents, little jokes and this and that.
All the
If he has
puns.
his binders ready to go. So I love it. I love it, right? That's where the rumors get flowing. I don't know we get that much action. Like the transactions don't break down. It's different. You meet with a different, you meet with the GM, every baseball ops guy, AJ Preller, they're all going to hold court. He will not answer any direct questions about anything. But it's a fun time. You talk to the agents, you pick up all the juicy rumors, you get things going. And I think that now, as the Padres head in, I would imagine that trade rumors are going to be big, starting with a guy like Jake Cronenworth, who I believe, Kyle Glaser,
Yeah.
people have been talking about the possibility of the Padres trading since last year's winter meeting. How hot of a candidate is Jake Cronenworth going to be come deadline time?
Certainly a candidate. And I think we have to establish first and foremost why this is even a conversation in the first place. As we've discussed, the Padres need to add minimum 2 starting pitchers and a starting
Mm-hmm.
first baseman. And realistically, they need to build an entirely new bench as well. Right now, the Padres' projected payroll for 2026 per Fangraphs is $201 million. Their final
Wow.
payroll last year was $211 million. And we see teams that are exploring the possibility of a sale, they don't raise payroll. They keep it
Mm-mm.
the same or they cut it. No business that is potentially up for sale increases their expenses. That's just not how it works. So, realistically, understanding the Padres right now only have $10 million of payroll room to address all these needs, it's just really not feasible. And that's where you start the conversation of, okay, who can the Padres trade? Where can they move some money? Manny Machado has a no trade clause. Xander Bogaerts has a no trade clause. And frankly, no other team would take their contracts anyway, even if they didn't.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Jake Cronenworth has a limited 8-team no trade clause, but he has about 5 years and just over $61 million left on his contract. And for a left-handed hitting middle infielder who gets on base, has consistently good at bats, has some defensive versatility, that's valuable. And part of the reason he's so valuable to the Padres is why other teams very much value him as well. So when you look at the Padres having an attractive player at a salary that will help them, but also be affordable to other teams, Jake Cronenworth is really the guy that checks all the boxes.
How attractive a candidate do you think he really is, though, given the length of the contract
Yeah.
and given just the type of player that he is? And also, where do you see his best fit on the infield? And he's shown that he can adjust really anywhere.
Given the way salaries are today, getting
Mm-hmm.
a everyday middle infielder who gets on base at the clip Jake Cronenworth does, $12 million a year is actually, I'm not gonna say it's a bargain, but it's a very, very fair price. And frankly, if he was a free agent today, he would get more on an average annual value basis. So
He would get more. He would get more than that. So that was a bargain. That was a bargain at the time for AJ Preller. I know that extension caught me completely off
yeah,
guard. Didn't see that coming. I don't think that it was a need at that time. If
correct.
correct me if I'm wrong, the Padres extended him like at the start of the season when AJ Preller went on
Yeah.
his spending splurge, his splurge.
Exactly. And for the record, I think realistically, the extension, given where the Padres were, the
Hmm.
timing, it was not the best move for them at the time. Nonetheless, it's happened. And as the market has evolved over the years, again, we see middle infielders who are much lesser players than Jake Cronenworth pulling in $15, $16 million a year just because they can play the middle infield. Again, you add the left-handed bat, you add the defensive versatility. There's a lot of value
Mhm.
there. So
Okay. Okay.
in terms of what he would bring back, though, we talk about the Padres need starting pitching. Could they trade him for a starter? And that's where it gets a little tricky, right? Because as much as we talk about Jake Cronenworth's value, it is not equivalent to a front of the rotation kind of starter like a Pablo Lopez, like a Joe Ryan, like a Mitch Keller, like a Sandy Alcantara when he's healthy. So it's more that that's kind of a salary they can move, whether it
Mm.
is part of a package for a pitcher or they move him and then acquire a pitcher separately. That's really the best route for them to be able to clear up the money they need to go fill the holes they have.
Okay, so we expect that Jake Cronenworth is going to be the hot name. He's going to be the popular name going into the meetings. We'll see how that resolves itself. Who are some other possible trade candidates on the Padres? Whether it's a guy like Wandy
Yeah.
Peralta, who opted into the final 2 years
Yeah.
of his deal. I think he's due what 4.4, just over $4.5 million for the next
Yeah.
2 years, and Yuki Matsui, who will command 5.7
Yep.
in 2026.
So again, these would have to be more salary dump trades, right? None of these guys are going to bring back huge returns. Wandy Peralta's still
Mm.
an effective lefty, and again, while we all know there are plenty of Padres fans who think he's terrible and want to get rid of him ASAP, and he has had some games where he's definitely blown leads. Again, it is amazing what teams will give up to get even a moderately useful left-handed reliever. I mean, there are so many left-handed pitchers out there who are not good, but teams keep signing them to contracts just because they need a lefty. So Wandy Peralta's a guy, and look, Yuki Matsui has not been good. The Padres might have to eat a little bit of that salary, take half of it off or something. But in theory, these are two guys you could move, shave another 10 million or so off the payroll. And again, understanding you're not going to get much back from them. These are guys you trade for
Mm.
non-prospects, an A-ball. It's more about just getting rid of the salary. So again, shave off 10 million. Maybe you can put that toward, 2/3 of the annual salary for a decent starting pitcher. The other name I think we have to bring up, just because, again, it's a big salary and there's no trade protection there, but I'm going to start by saying he's not getting traded, so let's establish that from the get-go, is Fernando Tatis Jr. I know people have brought that up. That name has been floated around. Look, it's not happening. And on top of that, trading your best all-around player, even with his struggles, Fernando Tatis Jr. is going to his age 27 season and is the Padres' best all-around player. That does not put the franchise in a better position to win today, tomorrow, or the year after. So not only will it not happen, it wouldn't be the smart thing for them to do.
I can't imagine them trading their most marketable
No.
star. I mean, one of the most marketable stars in baseball. Forget just in San
Yes.
Diego. I mean, he's a fan favorite. He is so highly popular. And when you talk about the skill set of the players they do have, there's no one that has better tools than Tatis. They just have to
Correct.
figure out. Craig Stammen has to go ahead and
Yeah.
untap something in that talent to show that this guy can be what he said before last year's Fan Fest, the best player in all of baseball. That to
Eh,
me is
And look, we have
huge.
to be realistic. Over the
Mhm,
last 3 seasons, he has not hit more than 25 home runs in a season. You look at his
mhm,
first 3 seasons before the two wrist surgeries, the shoulder surgery, and the PD suspension. He
mhm.
was a 290, 40 homer, 100 RBI, 950 OPS player. That's over a 162 game, season. And again, there's the shortened
Mhm.
season and injury, but that's what he more or less was. Since then, he's been more of a 260, 2020 guy with an 800 OPS, which is still a really good player, but it's not that elite level player. That said, he's still in his prime. He's going into his age 27 season. I think people forget how young he is just because of how long he's been around. And look, there
Right.
is a point where he has to show, hey, I can get back to that level. But even at his current level, he's extremely valuable. Again, 260, 2020, one of the best defenders in baseball, and Platinum Glove Award winner
Right.
as the best
Two
defender in
time.
baseball. There's just a lot of talent there. So again, realistically, he's not getting moved, and that's why we're talking about Cronenworth, Peralta, Matsui. It's going to be more around the edge kind of players beyond Cronenworth.
Real quick on Tatis, and this is going to be a deeper conversation for another day. But just the,
Yep.
the numbers that you just mentioned that he exhibited last year, and despite the slug being down and the home runs being down, I believe he still set a career high in runs scored, which is
Yes.
what you want from your leadoff hitter, right? Runs scored, and games played is. Let's see. Let me phrase this correctly. But if that's who Tatis, do you think there's a possibility that's just who Fernando Tatis is at this point going forward? That's who he is. We're not going to see the 40, 50 home runs a year anymore. And if so,
Yeah.
how does that fit in with his contract?
Yeah. So I think this is a whole show in and of itself, right? So I go back to a lot of people focus on the PED suspension in 2022 and seeing, the drop off in offensive impact after that and point to that as the reason. And look, we have to acknowledge it happened, right? And I would be naive to sit here and say, oh,
Yep.
there's no correlation. At the same time, to me, the part of that missed year that actually I'm a little more concerned about is the two wrist surgeries. We see all the time that when hitters have wrist injuries, they don't always come back with the same strength, the same stability in the wrist, even at a young age. And I had talked to someone who was, he's a fairly well known hand and wrist specialist here on the West Coast. And one of the things he mentioned to me at the time was, the first wrist surgery Tatis had, it is what it is from the break from the motorcycle accident. What he told me was after the second surgery that he had to go in to kind of stabilize it. The Padres, he's like, look, the Padres are going to say it's no big deal. Tatis is going to say it's no big deal. It's a big deal. When you have to go back in for the second surgery, that doesn't bode well for the future for athletes. So I think it's something where, on the one hand, I think this might be who he is post two wrist surgery, shoulder surgery, PD suspension.
Okay.
But he's also so freakishly talented and going into still his prime seasons. I'm not going to sit here and say there's no chance or it's impossible for him to reach another gear. Again, whether it's the 290 40 homer guy or even if it's, hey, 275 and 30 homers, I'm not going to sit here and say he can't get there or it's impossible.
Okay. All right. Before we move on to the starters that are available on the trade market, starting pitchers, there's one more guy I'm going to ask you about, and I am
Yeah.
truly here on December 4th. I am shocked that I'm still asking you about him, that he's still in this roster. You know where I'm going, and that's Luis Campusano. Okay. Do you think what sort of trade value could Campy possibly have if they choose to move him? Which maybe that's why. No, you're not
Very,
buying it.
very, very, very limited. Simply because,
Okay.
look, as much as we've talked about, scouts believe he will hit. He has always hit. He's still 27 years old, has yet to establish himself in the major leagues.
Hmm.
Even if a team is going to take a chance on him, they're not going to pay up any significant amount to do so. Realistically, for the Padres, bringing him back once they did that, the best thing they can do with Luis Campusano is to just install him as their everyday DH. Stop with, the up and down and the bench. I mean,
Hmm.
again, depending on what they do at first base, in theory, you could go to battle with Gavin Sheets as your everyday first baseman, Luis Campusano as your everyday DH, and focus your financial resources on pitchers. It would not be a World Series caliber lineup, but you can survive with it. Um,
Wow.
but in terms of trade value, again, it only takes one team to see things differently. So I'm not going to sit here and say that, there's no chance of anything happening. But from an industry consensus standpoint, and this comes from talking to other scouts and evaluators and teams, like, look, we think he can hit. We have confidence he can hit. But again, you can't pay a heavy price for a 27-year-old who has never really done it over an extended period in the major leagues.
Okay, I am Marty Caswell. That is Kyle Glaser. We are part of Friar Territory. I am staring at your backdrop, envious of all your bobbleheads. I can't see everything clearly. Just quickly,
Well, so I'll
who is
say,
the best bobblehead? If there's an earthquake in Southern California, which bobblehead do you protect first?
so there's actually one in the back. It's an older one that I just think is super cool.
Okay.
It's Dave Winfield standing in old Qualcomm Stadium. It's part of the final
Oh,
season at Qualcomm. They had those
oh,
really cool
really?
bobbleheads. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
cool. It's like the throwback jersey. The other thing is, it's non-baseball. But look, LT was my guy. Grew up a huge Lydian Tomlinson fan. I've got I think I have three bobbleheads of him, a McFarlane
Oh
figure, all
boy,
sorts of stuff. Like that's
I see it.
I would say those. But I will say the thing I'm
Okay.
actually saving first and foremost is you can't see it. I have a couple autographed jerseys over there. And so I played baseball growing up, but hockey was my other sport. And Timu Solani was my guy. And my wife got me
Oh.
an autographed Timu Solani authentic jersey with a Hall of Fame inscription. That's the first thing coming down off the wall. Before my college diplomas, before my grad degree, that's the first thing coming.
I'm asking this question that actually happened when there was an earthquake a couple of years ago in San Diego. I literally ran to my shelves because things were rattling and falling down. All right, I'm sorry. I got distracted. I'm jealous, and
Well,
I'm going to keep working on my collection. Yes,
one other
Kyle.
thing I'll say. So, as much as the ballheads are cool, I think what I treasure most is probably all the press passes. That's kind of my
I know. I
look, we
know.
all have our moments of you know, wondering and self doubt, but I can look back at those and be like, yeah, I'm proud of my career. So again,
Love it.
that's probably the ultimate pride and joy.
You should be proud of that. I have a huge collection and a giant Jessica Simpson shoebox under my bed of all my press credentials. So one day when I open up my imaginary sports bar, I will put all of my credentials on full display. I'm talking about the credentials that you put on your neck. All right. Let me go ahead and move on. Let me move on to starting pitching because right now listen, the Padres ownership is the biggest question going forward for the
Yeah.
Padres. And as is the status of AJ Preller, which we discussed on Monday's show. But number three, it's going to be the starting pitching.
Yes.
You're not going to win anything. It doesn't matter about your offense. You have got to have starting pitching. Right
Right.
now, they have Nick Pivetta, who, by the way, is a bargain and can opt out after next year. We'll discuss that on next year's Friar Territory show, Kyle Glaser. And then they have Joe Musgrove coming back at some point from surgery. And then where do they have and where do the Padres go? What starters out there on the market could they line up with in a possible trade?
So first thing I want to say is we've talked a lot about the Padres and this front office, their strengths and their weaknesses, right? When it
Mhm.
comes to big dollar signings, the track record is terrible. It just is. When it comes to in-season trades, mid-season trades around the deadline, it's very, very mixed. There's some big hits, some big misses, and truthfully, it's a little more even than you'd like it to be. You'd prefer it to be more hits than misses. But when
Yes.
it comes to off-season trades, this front office has done a fantastic job. You look back on Blake Snell, Yu Darvish, Joe Musgrove. They got three frontline starters when we look back on it
Hmm.
for basically David Bednar and one decent prospect who turned out okay and Owen Casey. I mean, that's fantastic. We talk about Jake Cronenworth, him and Tommy Pham. That was an offseason addition. That was huge. Even going back to Trent Grisham, Luis Urias, Grisham ended up being the better big leaguer than Urias at the time. It was seen as kind of even. So they've done a really good job with trades around this time in the calendar. So if you're looking for reason for optimism, with the
Okay.
Padres, it would be that this pro scouting group, and this is one of the better pro scouting groups in baseball in this front office, this
Hmm.
is the time of year they typically excel. So with that, there are a lot of starting pitchers on the trade market. Again, different salary levels, and what I want to get to is can the Padres afford to acquire them in prospect capital? But look, you have a lot of names. Let's start with some. Tarek Skubal's not getting traded. It's people just need something to talk about, and even if he was, the Padres were not going to be in contention for
No,
it, right?
no,
I'll,
no.
I'll throw Hunter Green and Brady Singer in there too. Look, the Reds are a team coming off a playoff appearance. They're building up. They're not looking to trade things away. They're looking to build. So take them off the table, right? But when you
Okay.
look at guys like the Twins, you look at Joe Musgrove, you look at Pablo Lopez, you look at the Marlins with Sandy Alcantara and Edward Cabrera. The Brewers should not trade Freddie Peralta, especially at his price point. I don't think they will. At the same time, this is a franchise we have seen will trade guys on affordable contracts with 1 year left. We've seen it with Josh Hader. We've seen it with Devin Williams. So I think he is in play. I shouldn't say I think. He is in play, but again, it would take a lot. So I would say you look at, again, kind of the Ryan, Lopez, Peralta, Alcantara, Cabrera group, and we could throw Mitch Keller in there as well with the Pirates. All these guys are between, frontline starters to number threes. They're very, very valuable, and I think that's where the Padres do have something to work with here, where if they can clear some money, there are a
Hmm.
lot of starting pitching options on the trade market this year. So even if other teams can offer more for X guy or Y guy, in theory, there still should be at least one or two candidates left for the Padres to go get.
Okay, there's one more name I'll throw into that mix, and I know he used to be the apple of AJ Preller's eye. He was
Mackenzie
the guy
Gore.
that I thought you know it's
Yeah.
Mackenzie Gore. He was the untouchable. I mean, AJ Preller would glow when we talk about Mackenzie Gore, and that's the one that hurt him to trade. What's the possibility that the Nationals could move on from Gore?
Certainly
And
possible.
what do you think he's going to? I mean, what does he command on the trade market?
Yeah, so you talk about Mackenzie Gore. I had the pleasure of covering him in Lake Elsinore all the way through his minor
Yeah.
league career and wrote a lot about him, the ups and the downs. Yeah, so it's interesting. The Nationals' new front office, on the one hand, wants to build and, set a new foundation. But the question is, do you do that by trading away your controllable young players and just do a full reset? I'm talking about Mackenzie Gore, CJ Abrams, or do you build around them? I tend to come from the school of it's so hard to acquire frontline or mid rotation lefties who lead the league in strikeouts. And when you have them on team
Hmm.
control for 3 more years, even if you keep him for another year and a half, he's still going to command a massive haul if you do have to move him. So on the one hand, I can see them keeping him. On the other hand, if there is a true blow them away kind of offer, it would make sense to move him. So again, I don't see them moving him for quote unquote equivalent value, which would be a top 100 prospect, one other really good young prospect, and maybe a third or fourth piece in there as well. I think they would have to be blown away. And I don't necessarily think the Padres in their farm system have a blow them away kind of package they could offer for him.
You just answered my next question about what they do have in their system. Like who are going to be the most
Yeah.
attractive trade pieces from their minor leagues that
Yeah.
we might hear in the coming weeks, named Cruz Schoolcraft. By the way, I have now gotten to the point when the Padres introduce, when they make their first round pick available to the media, I don't bother getting to know them anymore because I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to see you again, but good on you and congratulations. Go get them. We'll talk about you in 5 years when you're pitching for a different team.
Yeah, so Cruz Schoolcraft, the Trey Turner rule, which happened because of AJ Preller, can't be traded as a new draftee yet, so he will definitely be a Padre next year.
Mhm.
So this Padres farm system, again, I want to start by saying one of the things I really took away from my time at Baseball America is no farm system is ever truly empty. Even the worst
Okay.
farm systems in baseball, you look up, they've had, three, four, five guys who, ended up having big league careers, and normally even one who kind of was an all-star type. There's just a lot of talent out there, even if you don't necessarily see it all the way through. So with that, this is a very, very thin farm system due to all the trades they made at this deadline and previous deadlines. Realistically,
Yes.
right now, the attractive pieces are Cash Mayfield and Miguel Mendez. And look, young pitching
Okay.
is always, always, always valued. They could bring something back, something real back. You look at some of the middle infielders on the international side, Jorge Quintana, the one prospect they acquired at the deadline. They have a young shortstop named David Cornell, who, again, 17-year-old international middle infielder. Those guys are always super attractive. And
Mhm.
there are some guys in here too that could be, good third, fourth pieces of a deal, right? Whether it's a Lamar King, whether it's a Jagger Haynes. So can the Padres put a package together of, hey, call it Mayfield, Quintana, and a third or fourth piece and get something valuable and useful? Yeah, it won't be, a frontline guy, but this is where the dynamics of other teams come into play. You look at a team like the Twins, which is just trying to shave payroll any way they can. They're not interested in equivalent value. They're saying, let's get as close as we can and get our money off the books. We see teams all the time in that scenario trade away good players and really not get a commensurate value back. And again, to the Padres' credit, they've done a really good job in the offseason of identifying those teams. They used to take advantage of the A's with this all the time when the A's were getting
Mhm.
rid of everybody.
Yep.
Um, so I think that's where, there's an opportunity, whether it's with the Marlins or the Twins who, they're just trying to cut payroll. The Marlins say they're going to add payroll. I'll believe it when I see it. But the Twins especially, there's going to be an opportunity to get guys, maybe not for commensurate value just because they're trying to cut payroll. The caveat is every other team is going to see the same thing, and they have packages that can beat the Padres package. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic.
Okay. Let's go ahead and get to another name that is fans are not as familiar with yet, and I hopefully I get his name right. His name is Tatsuya Imai. I'm half Japanese, haha wa nihonji desu, but I could still butcher certain names. Tell us, what's a scouting report on Tatsuya Imai and how big a deal is he going to be? How much buzz are we going to hear around his name next week at the winter meetings?
Yeah, so Tatsuya Imai is the latest starter to come over from Japan that
Mhm.
teams are very, very excited about. Now, he is not a pitcher at the level of Yoshinobu Yamamoto or what Yu Darvish or
Right.
Masahiro Tanaka were when they came out. Those were clear-cut number one, number two type starters,
Is he
four
more
plus
Roki
pitches.
Sasaki?
Roki was always considered more raw. So again, I went to Japan, scouted these guys, led Baseball America's Asia coverage, Pacific Rim coverage for years.
Wow.
Yamamoto was always more polished. Sasaki was more explosive but more raw. Sasaki was always
Okay.
seen as probably a guy that would be like 125 to 150 inning starter, kind of that Tyler Glasnow kind of starter, whereas Yamamoto
Okay.
is, hey, this is a 200
He's
inning
ready.
workhorse, as we've seen him be this past year. What
Okay.
he did in the World Series was insane. So, in terms of Amai, he's seen as kind of a tier below that group, but still a really good pitcher. Mid 90s fastball can get up to the upper 90s. A good slider that kind of does reverse action. It doesn't slide like you typically would. It's kind of like what Trey Savage had with the Blue Jays. It's very fastball slider heavy, but it's real stuff. He has a splitter and a changeup that are both pretty good as well. It's mostly fastball slider in terms of his arsenal, but the stuff is really, really real. Control is just the question. So he's a shorter guy, listed 5'11". He might actually be shorter in real life. We all know guys add 2 inches when they're under 6 feet. Um,
Is that
but
true?
oh yeah, oh gosh, yeah. I can't tell you how many guys. Look, I'm 5'10". I've stood next to so many guys that are, listed 5'11", 6 foot, and I'm eye level with them. I mean, it
Yeah.
comes with the territory.
Okay.
Yeah. In baseball, I'd be 6 foot. Um,
Okay.
but anyway, he's throughout his career, he struggled with his control. It has gotten progressively better the last couple years. And so on the one hand, you see a guy who has continued to improve, and that's really, really encouraging. This isn't a guy like Yamamoto who came in and took the league by storm pretty much right
Hmm.
away. When Imai broke into NPB, he really struggled his first couple years. He was a young right-hander, just kind of wild, didn't know what to do with his stuff. He's grown into it. He's gotten stronger. He's gotten more consistent with his delivery. So again, very good pitcher, real stuff. A lot of evaluators see him in like that number three bucket, but we see a lot of Japanese starters exceed expectations. Shota Minaga, I can't
Yes.
tell you how many times it was, yeah, it's a number four, number five, and he comes over and he pitches like a number two. So
Hmm.
look, he's the real deal in a lot of ways as a really good electric starter. Because of that, he's going to get 150-ish million, which again is going to put him out of the Padres price range.
You just just dashed my hopes. I was thinking, gosh, he sounds like a guy that would benefit greatly from the tutelage of Ruben Niebla and also you Darvish, who won't be pitching next season, but he might be a remarkable tutor. So you think he's out of the range for the Padres. So we're not even going to hear any stories about the Padres hosting him, about Manny Machado and Joe Musgrove hosting them in San Diego, only to think, you know what? What's the point? He's going to the Dodgers anyways. Even though he did say, I know he gave
Yeah,
an interview where he said he doesn't want to join the Dodgers. He wants to beat the Dodgers, which of
yeah.
course put him just in the adoring eyes of the Padres and the Giants fans. You think
That
out of the price range already, just like
again,
that.
never say never. But look, most of the projections for him are in that 7 year. He's 27, that 7 year, 150 million range. And as we've talked about, the Padres don't really have 20 plus million a year to give out now, this
Yeah.
year or really in future years. They've got a lot of money tied up in three players. So it's again, never say never. You never know if for whatever reason, look,
Hmm.
he's going to do his due diligence as all teams do. It would not be a surprise if he or his agent meets with the Padres. The Padres
Right.
should do their due diligence and they should do theirs. There's always a chance that for whatever reason the relationship, just clicks right away or he falls in love with the city. There's so many factors at play.
And there might be a
But
respect factor because we know that like a lot of the Japanese pitchers have such reverence for Yu Darvish and what he represents in San Diego, and they all grew up watching him. So I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if you have that meeting out of respect, but I don't know that we should expect for the Padres to be the finalists the way they were allegedly for Roki Sasaki and Shohei Ohtani when they narrowed down, their Rhodes presentation.
realistically, the Giants reportedly are out. Andy Baggerly with the Athletic, fantastic beat
Hmm.
writer, reported that they're
Yes.
not willing or wanting to take on another large salary. I really would not be surprised if he ends up with either the Yankees and the Mets. You talk about teams who, again, have a lot of money to spend, scout Asia aggressively, have
Yes.
established, foundations there. The Yankees in particular, they used to own that market and they got away from it to their detriment. They really ceded it to the Dodgers. Bringing a
Hmm.
Mayan would be a good first step in helping them get back to that. The other team I want to throw out there, just because they're so active in Asia, and if they don't re-sign Kyle Tucker, in theory they'll have some payroll room.
Ah.
Is the Cubs? They always scout Asia very, very well, very, very aggressively. Again, they brought in Shota Imanaga, but they have a long history going back to Kasuke Fukudome and a lot of other players
Say
as well.
Suzuki.
So
Hmm.
yes, Seiya Suzuki, of course. So that's another team I'd keep an eye out for if they don't re-sign Kyle Tucker, which by all appearances they probably won't. So look, will the Padres have a meeting with him? I would assume they will, given their relationships in Asia.
Okay.
Will Amai and his agent be willing to meet with the Padres? Again, I would assume they would for due diligence. I'd be surprised if they didn't.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, money talks. And
Right.
when you're faced with the Mets or Yankees or Cubs or whoever potentially offering $150 million, it's going to be really, really hard to turn that down.
I actually, at this point, the way things stand right now, the uncertainty around the Padres, I'd actually be surprised if they even did meet with him because when you know about the uncertainty hovering over the organization with the team, up for sale and not knowing what the future of the GM, I just don't know if you even have that meeting if you're the agent. But we'll see what happens. All right, wait, hang on. Let me check. Sorry, we're about to wrap up this show. I'm gonna do what I always do. I'm gonna check my email and just make sure I didn't miss anything from the Padres. Kyle Glaser. Let's see.
I don't have anything either, so I think
No,
we're
we
good.
got nothing for the Padres. So when we catch up on Monday, we'll have a couple things to talk about. Nothing from the Padres on AJ Preller. The meetings, everyone will hover in on. Everyone gets together on Sunday. That's when the meetings kick off, right? And as you know, the best information comes from the hotel bars and places like that. It's not you gain nothing from the press conferences. You gain everything from lurking in dark corners and going up to somebody with your beer and having a conversation. That's how it goes. So we'll see
Hotel
what kind of deals the
lobbies,
Padres will make.
yeah,
Yeah.
hotel lobbies, hotel bars. Well, I have to say, a lot of officials and executives now from teams kind of cloister
Hmm.
themselves up in their rooms. They don't come
And
down
their
as much as they
suites.
used to in their suites.
Yeah.
So
Pry
a
them down.
little more so, but the agents are around. And yeah, I remember I was coming out of a WBC press conference and just so happened to see Joe Wolf talking to some Japanese reporters and went over and got something about Kodai Senga that most other American reporters didn't get just from walking around and like, oh, I should go over here and see what's happening. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's a lot of that kind of stuff. But again, this day and age, a lot of executives just kind of hole up in their suites and
Hmm.
you see them at the occasional press conference and never again.
Yep. It's fun. And I wish I were there, but we'll see what happens. Hopefully, we get a lot of good rumors. Hopefully, by Monday, we have something new to talk about. Maybe there's going to be a signing or an announcement or a press conference. But Kyle Glaser, who, by the way, who is 6 feet tall, I thank you for your time.
Definitely not. Definitely not. No, 5'10". But again, we talk about when in baseball and really all sports listings, if you're under 6 feet, you add 2 inches.
I
That's
did
the
not know that.
Oh yeah, it's all the. I mean,
Okay.
I've been in enough locker rooms, hockey, football. I mean, Darren Sproles
Hmm.
was not 5'6". We all know
No,
that.
no.
He was
Darren Sproles
five
was.
four, 5'3" and a
I'm
half.
5'4" on a good day.
Yeah,
I don't know if Darren Sproles was 5'4", but that's a
exactly.
conversation. But he was a badass man. Let me tell you
Oh,
that,
he was
as you
amazing.
know.
He was
Yeah,
amazing.
he was
But
great.
yeah, so again, case in point.
All right, Kyle Glazer, have a wonderful weekend. I can't wait to talk to you on Monday because no matter what, we're going to have new, fresh, hot rumors to discuss on the Monday's episode of Friar Territory. I am Marty Caswell. That is Kyle Glazer. Thank you all so much for watching Friar Territory. Have a wonderful weekend. We will talk to you come Monday.